Welcome to the Soulful Insights podcast, where we dive deep into the topics that matter most to living a fulfilled and meaningful life. I'm your host, Tandi, and today we're going to be exploring a topic that is at the very core of your well-being, and that is the power of being authentic. What does it mean to be truly authentic? And how does living in alignment with your true self impact your happiness, your relationships, and your overall sense of purpose? Authenticity isn't just a buzzword. It's a powerful way of being that allows you to live a life that feels real, genuine, and fulfilling. As much as you might strive for authenticity, there are so many forces in your life that can pull you away from your true self and from your soul's purpose on this earth. I want to start this with a quote before we dive into all the life experiences that can affect your ability to live authentically. And the quote is by Brené Brown. And she says, "Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are." And I absolutely love this quote, and I think that it very powerfully sets the stage for this episode as we unpack these barriers to authenticity and explore how they can prevent you from living the life you are truly meant to live. We're going to discuss how losing your curiosity and open-mindedness limits your ability to explore your true nature, leading you to adopt beliefs and behaviors that might feel safe or acceptable, but aren't truly authentic to you. We'll also take a closer look at what I call the chameleon effect, which is how you mold yourself to fit other people's expectations of you, and the toll that this can cause on your integrity and your mental health. When we become what others want us to be, we're not just hiding our true self, we're lying to everyone around us. Throughout this episode, we're going to draw on insights from psychology and spirituality to understand the importance of being authentic, not just for yourself, but for your relationships, your work, and your community. By the end of today's discussion, you'll have a clearer understanding of what it means to live authentically, and hopefully you'll be inspired to take steps towards embracing your true self no matter what life throws your way. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into the transformative power of being authentic. So the first topic that we're going to talk about today is trauma and its effect on authenticity. And again, we're going to start with a quote from Clementine Wamaria that says, "I'm still coping with my trauma, but coping by trying to find different ways to heal it rather than hide it." One of the experiences in life, obviously, as we're discussing this, that can derail your authenticity is trauma. It can leave deep scars that distort your sense of identity, your sense of self-worth, your sense of value. Trauma survivors often live in various states of dissociation and survival that severely impacts their ability to value their own authenticity. Living in a state of survival can disconnect you from your higher self, from your higher purpose in life, because the primary goal for a brain in trauma is to survive. Many individuals simply go through the motions in life, rather than being able to truly be present in the moment and live intentionally. If you feel like you're living life just going through the motions, you struggle to feel connection with yourself or with others, if you feel overwhelmed easily, if you feel like emotions are just under the surface, it's time to recognize that you deserve so much better. You deserve so much better than that. Trauma is a deeply personal and often overwhelming experience that can have profound effects on your ability to live authentically. When we experience trauma, especially in the formative years, it can cause you to disconnect from your true self as a way of coping with the overwhelming emotions and the overwhelming situation. The dissociation and disconnection can be a protective mechanism, But over time, it can also prevent you from living fully and authentically in your life. It can disconnect you from finding joy in your life. It can disconnect you from experiencing connection with other people, from living in the present moment and being able to live intentionally and create the life that you truly desire. Trauma often leads to dissociation, which is a psychological response where you become detached from your thoughts, emotion, your connection with other people, as I mentioned before. It can also cause you to become detached from your sense of self or your sense of individuality or identity. It is a part of you that shuts down to avoid the pain of the traumatic experience. But this shutdown, if it continues, you are unable to process and transform the pain and trauma you've experienced. And so it just perpetuates this shutdown dissociation that goes on and on and on. You live on autopilot. And really, honestly, you are not in the driver's seat of your life in this experience. And that is why this can be so profoundly painful over and over, because it's like you are constantly spinning in the results of trauma and not transforming and moving forward. So another component of trauma is the ruminating thoughts, or as I call them, tormenting thoughts. And these can linger for years afterwards. While this can be a part of the survival mechanism in the moment, it's kind of the brain's way of like trying to process what's happened and also trying to find a way out of the pain. How do I fix this? How do I change this? So these ruminating thoughts, in a sense, are kind of telling you that the brain is trying to process and the brain is trying to work through this and trying to like fix it. But these tormenting thoughts can be very distressing and provoke anxiety and panic attacks and other things. And so when this lingers on for years afterwards, it creates a barrier between you and your true self, and even a barrier between you and your higher self, which can be even more damaging because it leads to a lack of direction, and it can also disconnect you from your sense of identity. So you may find yourself living on autopilot, going through the motions without truly engaging with those emotions, thoughts, or beliefs. It can also cause a lot of confusion about your true identity, your true purpose, and can cause a lot of aimlessness. And even in young, impressionable ages, this can be very difficult for them to navigate identity. So this disconnection can make it difficult to know who you really are. You may struggle to identify your true desires, your true passions in life, and your own personal values in life, because they've been buried under layers of unprocessed pain. And this is when life begins to feel really heavy, burdensome, and disconnection can settle in for years due to this unprocessed pain and trauma that remains locked in your mind and your body. As a result of this trauma and pain locked in the mind and body, you may adopt behaviors, beliefs, or identities that feel safe to you or socially acceptable, but that don't truly reflect who you are at your core. They do not honor the true authenticity and essence of who you are. You may get to a point where you no longer recognize the person you see in the mirror, or you might feel as though you are living someone else's life. You can become so disconnected and so dissociated that it really feels like you're living someone else's life. You're disconnected from the life that you're living. This disconnection from yourself leads you to live a life that's not authentic. It robs you of the essence of joy and happiness and peace. And it causes a misalignment with the truth of your soul and its purpose in the physical realm. So this can be very, very painful. This misalignment is what causes you to not recognize the empty eyes that are staring back at you in the mirror. Because trauma has taken a deep hold on you and robbed you of a connection to who you really are. You are, in essence, really living someone else's life, because life, you are reacting to life. You are reacting to what is happening. You are living on autopilot. You're not living intentionally. You're just going through motions in reactions and being kind of dragged around through your life rather than being in the driver's seat. but you're not living the life you were meant to live. But I want to give you hope here, because it does not have to be this way, and it doesn't have to stay this way. There is hope and there is healing beyond the pain, beyond the ruminating or tormenting thoughts, beyond the feelings of worthlessness and confusion. There is healing, there is hope, and there is happiness on the other side. Trauma can also manifest as a loss of a sense of self-worth and confidence. The pain and disorientation caused by trauma can make you feel unworthy, as if your true self is not enough, or you are somehow flawed. If you find yourself in the depths of this kind of suffering, please seek out help, because you do not deserve to feel this way, and you can find healing. And there are so many modalities out there that are extremely effective, and some of them can be profound and don't take even long periods of time. I went through a lot of different modalities. I started out going down the traditional route of therapy and all of that, and found that actually found that it made my trauma worse and deeper because of, and I tried several different therapists, and so I found many modalities. Breath work was one of them. There were many that I found to transform, and it was powerful and beautiful. And coming out on the other side, I am still working through trauma. It is not something that is a one and done thing, obviously, but the more that I do, the more profound healing that occurs. And there are some modalities that I have used where I've literally released trauma in one session. It can be very powerful. So I want you to really search out and find what resonates with you, so that you can transform and process all of that is stored inside your body and inside your mind, because you're never going to be able to find your authentic self until that is processed and released from your body and from your mind. Living on autopilot just becomes a way to avoid confronting these difficult feelings. You might fill your days with distractions, keep yourself constantly busy, or numb yourself with substances or unhealthy habits, all to avoid facing the pain that's simmering just beneath the surface. But this autopilot mode comes at a cost. It keeps you from living intentionally and authentically. But most importantly, it robs you of joy in your life. Your life does not have to be dictated by trauma and pain. Reconnecting to your authentic self through bringing up that emotion out of where it is stored in your body and your mind, processing, healing, and releasing it, is a journey. A journey that involves facing and processing that pain you've experienced. It's not easy. But as you begin to work through your trauma, you can start to reconnect with the essence of who you are. You can begin to rediscover your emotions, your thoughts, your beliefs, that all of the things that make you, you, and learn to embrace them as part of your true self. As you heal, you can also start to reclaim your sense of self-worth and confidence, and begin to understand that the trauma you experience does not define you, and that your true self is infinitely valuable. You will learn to see yourself not as broken or flawed, but as resilient and worthy, with a unique and valuable place in the world. You did not choose the trauma you experienced, but you do have the power to choose healing. And in doing so, reclaim your life, reclaim your freedom from the grip that has on you, and reclaim your authenticity. As you begin to work through trauma and begin to reconnect with your true self, you will come to realize who you truly are. And it's a beautiful experience. I can tell you from personal experience that facing your trauma, processing the emotions, walking through that healing journey, and coming to know your worth and value and your authentic self is a beautiful journey that leads to healing and wholeness beyond what you may even be able to imagine while you are still walking in the depths of trauma. And I want you to know that at your very core, you are of infinite value. Your worth is not determined by the trauma you endured or the choices of whoever inflicted that trauma upon you. Your worth Your value is inherent in the fabric of your soul. Reconnecting with this truth allows you to live more authentically. Embrace your true nature without fear, without shame. You are lovable. You are worthy. You are of infinite value. So I want to summarize this by saying that trauma can create significant barriers to living authentically, as I stated before. It can lead to a loss of self-worth. And in its dissociation and disconnection and confusion and just living on autopilot, it causes a lot of pain. But through the process of healing, processing, and transcending that trauma, you can begin to peel back these layers, reconnecting with the essence of your true self and embracing the infinite value that lies within you. It's a journey that requires courage and patience, but the reward is the ability to live a life that is true to who you really are with peace and joy, and you deserve that. I used a variety of spiritual practices and techniques to process and transcend trauma, and I am still doing them today. To be honest with you, I am still working through a lot of trauma, but I'm learning how to show up with courage in my life and how to show up authentically no matter what, and that is a beautiful thing. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is high demand religion and its impact on authenticity. And if you have been around for a while, you know that this one hits very close to home for me because I grew up in a high demand religion, as many of you know. And this religion caused deep emotional pain because of their teachings, mainly their teachings about women and even the status of women in the afterlife, which sounded a lot more like hell to me than anything heavenly. I felt trapped. I mean, I wanted to go to heaven, but at the same time, the station of women in heaven in my high demand religion sounded so painful, I was honestly afraid to have to go there. This created a lot of inner turmoil and suffering for most of my life. And this high demand religion is not any mainstream Christian religion, just so you know. Their teachings about heaven are very different than mainstream Christianity. There is a very specific station for women in this religion, and it is not a good one. So there are many times when I would be in a Sunday school class and I would walk out, or I would be in Sunday worship service and I would walk out in tears because of the things that were being taught about my ultimate value as a woman in God's plan. And high demand religions often come, and this is the case for high demand Christian religions and many non-Christian religions as well. They often come with a set of rigid doctrines, gender roles, and religious moral expectations that can significantly suppress individuality and authenticity. And I want to be clear, there is a set of moral values that we all should have. I mean, yeah, we shouldn't be killing people. We should not be harming other people. We should not be using other people. All of those things are great. But when I talk about moral expectations of these religions, I'm not talking about being a decent human being. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about moral expectations such as you better not drink coffee or you're going to hell. Okay, so, you know, these little things like women are not allowed to wear red, or there's all kinds of these weird expectations that have nothing to do with being a good human being, okay? So while these religions may offer community and structure, they also frequently demand conformity to a prescribed way of life that can stifle personal growth, curiosity, and the expression of one's true self and even your soul purpose. And when I say that, I mean like the essence of your soul purpose on earth. In many high demand religious settings, the expectation is very clear. You adhere to the rules, you adhere to the gender roles, you follow the doctrines, and you maintain the beliefs without question. And this environment can create a pressure cooker where individuals feel they must conform to a specific mold to be accepted, both by the community itself or the religion itself, and to even be accepted by God. So for example, these religions often impose strict gender roles, which I think is one of their more damaging things, along with some of their moral restrictions, which can get far too strict as well. But they're dictating what men and women should and shouldn't do, think, or feel. They dictate that a woman should submit to her husband, She should prioritize the identity of wife and mother over her own sovereign identity. Her entire life is a life of servitude and self-abandonment. And this is looked upon as righteous and humble. Now, when I say they're controlling what you think and feel, she's not allowed to think anything negative about submitting to her husband. That's pride. She's not allowed to feel that God thinks she's less than. Think that God thinks she's less than. She's not allowed to feel uncomfortable with this because that's all pride. She just has any questioning of her servitude is looked upon as pride and going against her, quote, godly role. This is where we start losing a sense of self, and it even can turn into self-abandonment. Basic life skills such as cooking, ironing, doing laundry, scrubbing a bathroom, they're no longer responsibilities of every human being to learn how to clean up after themselves and learn how to prepare some food for themselves. It's now a gender role and is placed squarely on the shoulders of women. Despite the fact that every family member wears clothes, eats food, and uses the bathroom, it's the woman who's expected to provide maid service. Now, they allow children to be taught to do these things, but essentially it's the woman's role. She has to make sure this gets done. The reality is every single human being should learn basic skills of preparing meals and cleaning up after themselves. These are simply basic life skills. They're not gender roles. I have a son now who's 22 years old. He's going to college. He lives on his own in his own apartment. He doesn't share with anyone else. Guess what? He cooks for himself. He does his own laundry. He cleans. His apartment is messy. He's a 22-year-old. But that is his responsibility. He's not married. Obviously, he's only 22. But those are life skills. It's not about a woman. Everyone needs to learn to take care of themselves and clean up after themselves. It's just basic common sense life skills. Children also, so we move on to the other gender roles about childcare. Children have both a mother and a father. And yet religious gender roles demand that caring for children is only the responsibility of a mother. Instead of allowing a couple to be able to work their education, work schedules around each other so both of them can pursue their dreams and ambitions while jointly caring for their children, this becomes again a responsibility that sits squarely on the shoulders of the mother. Fathers take absolutely no responsibility for raising or caring for their own children. The mother is expected to self-abandon to provide childcare 24/7, while he merely sees the children for a few hours after work every night. The expectation that women self-abandon to provide maid service and childcare to a man's children is ridiculous. It is both of their children, it is both of their responsibility, and nobody should have to sacrifice everything else. This idea is ridiculous to say the least, and it causes a severe midlife crisis, midlife identity crisis in women down the line when the children are gone and she doesn't know who she is anymore. She is sitting in an empty house while her husband is at work and she's only 43 years old and she has no job experience, no college education, no anything, and she's sitting in an empty house. This motherhood is temporary. It cannot be an identity because it's temporary. But yet, this is what women are expected to do. Don't get an education. Don't do anything. Don't be an actual human being. And when the kids are gone, what do? Sit there and eat bonbons and watch TV all day? By the time you're in your mid-40s, you got we don't retire until 65. You have like 20 some odd years, working years, that you could do something with your life if you decide that you don't do anything until after. You still have 20 some odd years. And you have nowhere to go. You want to go flip burgers with 16-year-olds? You want to go back to college with 18-year-olds? Because that's your only option. It's just not right. Don't get me started. I'll get off my soapbox and let's move on. Gender roles, sexism, and shame. The enforcement of traditional, that is kind of their, that is their, how they do things. Shame. Big time. The enforcement of traditional gender roles is a common feature in high-demand religions, where men are placed in positions of authority and women are expected to be submissive, nurturing, and domestic. This kind of systemic sexism not only limits the potential of women, but also perpetuates feelings of shame and inadequacy in those that don't fit neatly into these roles or those who just don't want to fulfill these roles. There are women who are highly intelligent all women are highly intelligent, but there are women out there whose sole purpose is to be a scientist, to be a lawyer, to be something in this world. And to try to stick her in this box is an absolute tragedy. It also prevents couples and families from exploring the best options for their unique needs, and often leaves women at severe financial disadvantage. This is the other thing I could get on a soapbox on, but I will not, because I've seen far too many women very close to me have this happen to them. It leaves women at a severe financial disadvantage with the inability to leave abusive relationships or relationships where they're being cheated on and they know it, because they don't have any education or work history that would allow them to support themselves and their children. I've also personally seen a woman, she was in their very early 30s. They had very, very small children. Their youngest, I think, was 4 months old. Okay, her husband was like between 30 and 32 years old. Walking down the hall in the house, died. Just gone. This woman had no education. He had no life insurance, nothing. Left her completely. They had just bought a house in the last couple of years. How is she going to pay for this now? It leaves widows, very young widows, at a severe disadvantage due to lack of education and resources that are caused by these narrow gender roles. They just don't work. The world is not that perfect. Women should not be stuck in abusive relationships. There should not be women that fully know that their husband is cheating on them all over the place, and he doesn't care. Why? She can't leave. She can cook, she can clean, she can take care of his kids, and he can cheat all he wants, and she can't go anywhere. This is a horrible, horrible system. The suppression of individuality under the guise of spiritual obedience can lead to deep internal conflict and a loss of authenticity. A lot of women self-abandon, and they put on this role of wife and mother. And when things don't work out perfectly, and even when if things are generally okay, they're not being abused or anything, there is a loss of identity over the years. The pressure to conform can lead to profound disconnection from one's true self. And the cost of this suppression is significant. When people are forced to conform to a prescribed way of life that doesn't align with their sole purpose or their true self, they may experience a range of negative emotions: frustration, resentment, a profound sense of a loss of self. The dissonance between who they are, or who they were meant to be in this world, and who they're expected to be by their religious community, can lead to a life of quiet desperation where authenticity is sacrificed for the sake of acceptance. It's just not okay. All right, I will move on from the soapbox. I can handle this next one a little bit easier. This is societal pressure. Well, maybe I can't. We'll see. This one is societal pressure and its impact on authenticity. So societal pressures can also be a significant hindrance to authenticity. Societal expectations of your appearance, your financial status, your reasons for believing something, your political affiliations, your reasons for choosing something or doing something with your life. What is acceptable in any aspect of your life, including what you believe, can be very stringent in very different culture or society situations. And there is an expectation that people fall within the societal norms and the societal beliefs. For me, I'm going to give you a really interesting example that you probably would never even think of. So even something as simple as choosing to live in a very rural area on 40 acres of land has caused many people to take pause and ask me so many questions. So yes, I live a couple of miles outside of a town of 250 people. You heard that right, 250 people. I very much live out in the middle of nowhere. And so people, why would you do that? Are you going to farm the land? What are you going to do with the land? Like, are you homesteading? Like, what are you doing? Why would you live so far away from stuff? Like, I get these questions all the time. And you want me to tell you what my answers are? Why would I do that? I moved here because I wanted to, and for no other reason. I wanted to. And people they want a reason, like, oh, it must be for a job. There has to be like no, there's not a reason. I just wanted to. No, I'm not doing anything with the land. I'm not farming it. I'm not homesteading. I'm not doing any of those things. I just want to live on a lot of land. So I do. That's it. I just wanted to. I don't have to do, like, there's this thing of like, oh, if you have 40 acres, you have to do something with it. No, I don't. I can just let it be natural, beautiful land, just the way it is. I live so far away because I want to. Nope, not for a job. My husband has to travel a couple of hours away once a week to do stuff for work. And he stays overnight at his parents' house and comes back the next day. But we want to live out here, so we do. And I can totally do that for the simple reason that I want to. But this is what people don't understand. I don't have to have a reason. I can just want to. Doesn't have to be for a job. Doesn't have to be for anything. I don't have to do anything with land. I don't have to do anything. I can just want to. And people, like, it's like, can't compute. Like, they don't get it. They're empty stares. Like, I'm so confused. And this is a very basic example of how societal pressures and ideals can keep us from being authentic. If I cared about what people thought, this might be uncomfortable exchange for me, but I don't. There are expectations that you have to have a reason for everything you do. You're doing something just because you want to is just not understandable to most people in society. But and this is a really silly one, but it does drive home the message of how something's just so basic people don't understand. Most people don't see how much society plays a role in shaping who they are and what they believe and what they do. A lot of people wouldn't do what I've done because it just wouldn't even occur to them to do something because they wanted to. Like, no, I have a job, it's in the city, I have to live in the city. No, you don't. You don't. Society kind of makes you think you do, but you don't. You can live 4 hours away from work if you want. Probably don't want to drive that far, but if you do, great. But here's a couple of other examples of how society can really put a lot of pressure. When someone chooses alternative medicine over conventional medicine, people lose their minds. When you choose an alternative option for mental health rather than medication or therapy, people lose their minds. You can't do that. That's not acceptable. When someone doesn't believe what others consider to be a scientific consensus, people get their panties in a wad. I don't have to believe what the scientific consensus is, and I will tell you why in a minute. When someone believes in anything considered to be a conspiracy theory, everybody gets upset about it. There's absolutely no room for living or thinking outside the box. You can't believe in anything unless it's taught to you in a government, school, institution, or you're labeled as a crazy conspiracy theorist. But the funny thing to me is the worship of modern science, okay? Oh, science says, so why would you go against that? You're crazy. You're a psychopath. You gotta, go to the doctor and you gotta do the modern science thing, right? Believe whatever they tell you. Well, let's think back to when doctors used to recommend smoking to pregnant women to help them relax. Oops. Then science proves this causes low birth weight, preterm labor, and all kinds of complications. So, maybe I shouldn't believe in science. What science believes one day is proven wrong the next. I'll give you another one. Doctors are giving thalidomide to pregnant women until science caught up and realized it was causing children to be born without limbs. Oops. Don't think I want to be putting all my faith into that, because a lot of times they will put something out and they don't find out. It takes them a long time to figure out what the causes are. You can't do a study of like 3 months, 6 months, a year and be like, oh, okay, it's totally safe. Not necessarily. Doctors used to remove the thymus gland of children because they believed it was enlarged and that was a problem. Oh, until science caught up and they realized that children's thymus glands were enlarged because their immune systems are not fully developed till they're 10 years old. So when they're removing that, these children's immune systems were severely compromised. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Doctors used to operate on infants without any anesthetic whatsoever because they believed their nervous systems were not developed enough to feel pain and their screams were just a reflex. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Yes, I have studied medical history. The reality is we need to be allowed to think for ourselves and decide what we believe without shame or ridicule, because science is not 100% foolproof. It never has been. We've believed different things throughout the years all over the place about the world we live on, about health, about medical stuff, about all of it. It's always ever changing, and there's always a scientist that's got somebody paying money for them to say something. You don't know where that science coming from. Is it real, or is someone paying for it? So being authentic to yourself includes believing what you believe, regardless of religion, science, or what society believes. That is what authenticity is. So yes, society does have a huge impact on how authentic you are, because if you just go with all the mainstream, whatever they're telling you, it's not authentic. You're just allowing someone to feed you information and just accepting it. So we're going to move into the pursuit of perfectionism. This can be a rough one for some people. And again, we're going to start with a quote by Anne Wilson Schaaf, sorry. And she says, "Perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order." Let me say that again. Perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order. That is absolutely 100% true. Perfectionism is not about striving for excellence. That's not what it is about. If trauma, high-demand religions, and society wasn't enough to stifle your individuality, the relentless pursuit of perfection will add to your struggle. There are individuals that I know who cannot even change an ingredient in a recipe due to perfectionism. So I'm going to give you this example. We were cooking a meal for 4 people, 2 of whom could not have one of the ingredients in the recipe, and the other one didn't care whether the ingredient was in there or not. It was only the person making the meal that cared. The other 3 didn't care, okay? But this individual that was cooking with me absolutely could not change the ingredients of the recipe, regardless of the needs of half the people coming to the meal. She couldn't do it. The only compromise that could be made was that I would make half the recipe without that ingredient, and she would make a half the recipe with the ingredient, because she could not leave it out. She had to make the recipe the way it was written. And the funny thing is, the half the recipe that I made was gone, and nobody touched the half the recipe that she had done. This type of perfectionism and inflexibility in life completely stifles creativity, self-exploration, curiosity, and authenticity. Any type of perfectionism that does not allow you to relax and be curious about other points of view, other ways of doing things, other options, and even allowing things to be imperfect is going to affect your quality of life. It's even going to affect your happiness, your relationships, and your ability to truly discover your authentic self. And the most basic explanation of inauthenticity that I can give you is the desperate need to feel that we need to be someone we are not in order to fit in or be accepted. And in our fast-paced, image-conscious world, the pursuit of perfection has become a common yet deeply problematic pursuit. Whether it's in your career, relationships, appearance, personal achievements, the pressure to be flawless is immense. But this relentless drive for perfection often comes at a steep cost: the loss of your true self. Perfectionism is the belief that if we can just get everything right, we will finally be worthy. You will be worthy of love and respect and acceptance. Is that true? No. The truth is, perfection is an unattainable standard. It is a moving target that can never be fully reached, no matter how hard you try. And in this futile chase, you will lose sight of who you really are. You will lose sight of your authentic self in all your perfect imperfections. And you know what? If I'm being real with you, it is a form of self-abuse. It is a form of self-punishment for feelings of inadequacy. It is about setting impossible standards and then punishing yourself when you inevitably fall short. Instead of embracing your true self, flaws and all, you end up engaging in self-criticism, self-inflicted disappointment, punishment, self-rejection, self-doubt, and a constant sense of inadequacy. The roots of perfectionism are often found in societal and cultural pressures that glorify flawlessness. Sometimes they're rooted in other low levels of self-esteem or self-confidence, but you may see images on social media or expectations set by society as a whole. There's a pervasive message that to be accepted, you must appear perfect. And this can lead to a vicious cycle of inauthentic behavior where you present a carefully curated version of yourself to the world. And yet this carefully crafted social persona is also one that hides your perceived imperfections and in the end masks your true authentic self. In this pursuit of a flawless exterior, you can become disconnected from your inner self. You might find yourself conforming to societal standards that don't align with your true values, or pretending to be something you're not to gain approval or avoid criticism. This inauthentic behavior may bring temporary acceptance, but it ultimately leaves you feeling empty and disconnected from yourself, from who you really are. This may cause internal turmoil, or it may simply disconnect you from your true nature, leaving you constantly living your life out of alignment. Perfectionism creates a barrier to authenticity by making you afraid to show your true self. You fear that if you reveal your flaws, you'll be judged, rejected, and seen as inadequate. So you hide behind a facade of perfection, even though it's exhausting and unsustainable. Living in this state of constant self-monitoring and self-editing can be deeply damaging. It prevents you from embracing yourself, all of you, including your perceived imperfections. Those imperfections are what make you unique and give you personality. It also prevents you from living a life that's genuine and fulfilling. Over time, the weight of maintaining this perfect image can lead to burnout, anxiety, and a profound sense of dissatisfaction. So how do you break free from perfectionism? To reclaim your authenticity, you must first recognize that perfection is an illusion. It's a standard that cannot be met by any human being on the planet, and striving for it only leads to pain and disconnection. Embracing imperfection, on the other hand, allows you to connect with the unique quirks and imperfections that make up all of who you are. Some of those quirks and imperfections are part of what you need to bring into the world. Accepting all of you, every part of you, will help you connect with your authentic self on a deeper, more meaningful level. Authenticity means accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all. It means recognizing that your worth is not determined by how perfect you appear, but by your inherent value as a human being, and more importantly, as an infinitely divine soul. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you free yourself to be real, to be vulnerable, and to be truly seen. That is where your biggest fear lies. The fear of being truly seen. If you are rejected in your vulnerable, authentic self, that feels like the deepest, most frightening form of rejection. And so you avoid it by hiding behind perfectionism and people-pleasing, and that feels safe. So to summarize this one, the pursuit of perfectionism is a powerful force that can prevent you from embracing your true self, from fostering love and acceptance. Societal and cultural pressures to appear flawless lead to inauthentic behavior and a disconnection from your inner self. And really, I also want to mention the physical appearance. We have airbrushing and plastic surgery and all of these things to create this illusion of perfection, but reality is that isn't you. You can live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Be authentic to yourself. Your body is beautiful the way that it is. After all, it's your imperfections that make you uniquely you and beautifully human. And it's in your humanity that your true beauty lies. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the loss of curiosity and open-mindedness. This is a huge thing in our society. We love to worship science. We love to worship what society tells us, what we learned in school, whether it's true or not. Curiosity is one of the most vital tools we have for understanding ourselves and the world around us. It's an innate drive that encourages us to ask questions, explore new ideas, and challenge the status quo. And we need people who do that. It's the only way that things change and we find more truth. When we lose this sense of curiosity, especially about our own lives and our own beliefs, we can become trapped in a rigid framework that limits our ability to discover who we truly are. This loss of curiosity can significantly inhibit your ability to live authentically, as it prevents you from exploring your true nature and keeps you confined within the boundaries of what others deem acceptable. At its core, curiosity is about exploration. It's the desire to know more, to delve deeper, and to understand the complexities of life and self. When we are curious, we are open to new experiences and new perspectives, which allows us to grow and evolve as individuals and as a society as a whole. This openness is essential for authenticity because it enables you to continually reassess your beliefs, your values, your identity in light of new information and new experiences. Curiosity encourages you to ask the hard questions. Who am I really? What do I truly believe? What do I want out of life? These are not questions with simple answers, and they require a willingness to explore the unknown. But it is in this exploration that we uncover our true self. You uncover your passions, your fears, your strengths, your weaknesses. Without curiosity, you risk stagnation and living a life dictated by habits, routines, and unexamined beliefs that may not align with your authentic self. When you lose curiosity, you close yourself off to the process of self-discovery. When you stop asking questions, stop exploring new possibilities, and instead settle into a comfortable but potentially limiting routine. This loss of curiosity can be particularly damaging when it comes to our beliefs and values. Without curiosity, you adopt rigid, unexamined beliefs that are based more on external expectations than your own truth. So, for example, someone that's lost curiosity might simply accept beliefs they were raised with without ever questioning whether those beliefs truly resonate with them or not. They might adhere to societal norms about what is acceptable behavior, even though those norms are restrictive and inauthentic. Over time, this unexamined adherence to external expectations can lead to a deep disconnection from your true self. And I want to move to rigid beliefs. This is a big problem in high demand religions, but it's also a big problem in the political arena. It's a big problem in the scientific community because we accept these beliefs. Oh, there's a scientific study that said this. Do you know how many times someone has told me, scientific study says this, and I go look at the scientific study and it was funded by the actual industry that it proposes to provide support for. It's like, oh, this product is like, cures this or does this or helps you lose weight or I don't know, whatever. And then I read who funded it and it's like, oh, of course it does. Some of these, it's very, very interesting. So you've got to be really careful. Science is not always science. It really depends on who's paying for it. And there's also bias. There always is. Rigid beliefs are often a product of losing curiosity. So when we stop questioning, we start to see the world in black and white terms with little room for nuance or complexity. We might cling to these beliefs because they offer a sense of certainty and security. But in doing so, we shut out the possibility of growth and change. These rigid beliefs can be particularly dangerous when they're based on external expectations, what society or family or peers tells us is acceptable and right. When we prioritize external expectations over our own inner truth, we risk living inauthentically. We might make choices that please other people, but leave us feeling unfulfilled or disconnected. So, for example, someone might pursue a career path that's socially esteemed, but doesn't align with their passions or interests. Or they might adopt behaviors and attitudes that are expected in their social circle or cultural group, even if those behaviors don't feel genuine to them. And over time, this dissonance between external expectations and internal reality can lead to a life that feels hollow and unfulfilling. Authenticity requires a willingness to be vulnerable, to explore the unknown, and to challenge the beliefs and expectations that have been imposed on us, even by science. It requires us to stay curious about our own lives and the world that we live in, to continually ask questions and seek out new experiences that help us grow and evolve. Reclaiming curiosity is essential for living an authentic life. It involves breaking free from the confines of rigid beliefs and external expectations and embracing the uncertainty and complexity of life. It means allowing yourself to ask questions. Challenge that status quo. I do it. It can be hard sometimes, I know. I've done it many times. Okay, last topic. This has been a long one. I apologize. We are going to talk about becoming a chameleon. and the lack of integrity in doing so. There's a common tendency for many people to mold themselves to fit the expectations of others. And the phenomenon is known as the chameleon effect. And while this ability to adapt can be useful in certain social situations, it often comes at significant cost to one's authenticity and integrity. Yes, I said that. Becoming a chameleon shows a lack of integrity. It's often driven by a desire for acceptance, a fear of rejection, or a need to belong, or to avoid conflict. This need to fit in can lead individuals to change their behavior, their opinions, their identity to align with those around them. However, the more someone engages in this behavior, the more disconnected they become from their true self. The psychological toll of constantly adapting to please others that you're around is profound. It creates an internal conflict between who you truly are at your core and the persona that you are presenting in whatever group you're in or whoever you're with. This dissonance can lead to feelings of emptiness, anxiety, loss of self-worth, and it can also just disconnect you from who you are. What do you really like? What do you really believe? Because you keep molding to what everyone else believes and says. When you consistently show up as someone you are not, you lose the ability to be genuinely seen and appreciated for who you truly are. The key quote that encapsulates this idea is, when you show up as someone you're not, you lose the ability to be truly seen. There's an importance to authenticity in fostering genuine connections and maintaining your integrity. You're being honest about who you are. You're being honest about what you believe. That's integrity. And I encourage you to reflect on the areas in your life where you may be sacrificing your integrity and your authenticity for the sake of others. I challenge you to embrace your true self and recognize that true belonging and acceptance comes from being authentic, not from conforming to others' expectations in order to receive acceptance, because they're not truly accepting you because you're not being you. You can't be accepted fully unless you are fully being you. And to close out this episode, I want to explore the practical steps to help you embrace and live more authentically, focusing on cultivating curiosity, setting boundaries, and living with integrity. So I want to encourage you to stay curious and open-minded as a way to discover and explore yourself and explore your beliefs. Sometimes beliefs change. Curiosity is a powerful tool that can lead to a deeper self-awareness and a more authentic life. So you can use techniques like journaling, meditation, self-inquiry. So you just kind of asking questions of yourself of, what do I believe and what do I think about this? And do I really, feel like this is authentic? How can I explore this a little bit more, learn more about it, and see if I really believe it? And this is how you can connect with your inner truth. Write down questions in your journal. Find out more information about what you believe. And when you regularly engage in these practices, you can uncover aspects of yourself that may have been overshadowed by societal expectations or desires to please other people. The other one is setting boundaries. This protects your authenticity. Boundaries are essential for maintaining your sense of self and ensuring that you don't compromise your true values and beliefs. So try to find strategies that resonate with you to help you confidently say no to situations and people that may lead you to sacrifice your authenticity. Setting boundaries is not about isolation, but creating a space where your true self can thrive. And so sometimes this doesn't mean like, oh, I've always kind of been a chameleon when I'm around this person. They're a very powerful personality and I kind of become a chameleon when I'm around them, so I'm just never going to be around them again. That's not necessarily it, but there's times where I'm in a vulnerable state, I'm not doing super well emotionally, and it's not super healthy for me to be around this person. It may often also be that before you are around these people, that you really check in with yourself and make sure that, okay, I know I always try to conform with these people. What can I do and how am I going to show up differently in that situation? Those kinds of things. But also setting boundaries with people who are abusive to you and cause you to shrink or to play small. In those situations, that's where a boundary needs to be set. Like, you know what, maybe I'm just not going to hang out with these people that are abusive or who can't accept who I really am. And that's just up to you, whatever those boundaries are. And also living with integrity. This final one, align your actions with your beliefs and your values and who you are. This is the essence of living with integrity. And I suggest practicing small acts of authenticity every day. Speaking your truth, making decisions based on your core values, choosing honesty in your interactions with people. When you are showing up in all of your honesty, you're not hiding things, you're not acting in a certain way when you're alone, hiding it from other people. Any secretive behavior, it always comes to light eventually. It destroys relationships, it damages things. That's just a no. That is a very low level of consciousness. That's a very low vibration way of living, and that is part of the reason we have pain and suffering, because we hide. Have true honesty in your interactions and in your relationships, and these small, consistent steps can help reinforce your commitment to living authentically and can lead to a more fulfilling and aligned life. So living authentically is crucial for your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So just remembering curiosity, having boundaries, and living with integrity. And that will help you create a life that is true to who you are at your very core. And as we conclude this episode, I want to encourage you to reflect on your own life and identify areas where you might be compromising your authenticity. This week, take one small step to living more authentically, whether it's setting a boundary with people who are abusive and make you play small and not speak your truth, to exploring your inner self, making decisions that align with your true values. Embrace the journey toward a more authentic you. And I want to leave you with this beautiful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. I really appreciate you being here with me today, especially if you made it to the end. I appreciate all of that. If you loved this episode, please consider giving a donation at the coffee link and supporting the work that I do. I love and I honor all of you, and I hope you have a blessed day.